Welcome back. The panelists here. Former Republican Congressman Carlos CURBELO of Florida. Former Democratic Congresswoman Donna Edwards of Maryland. NBC News White House correspondent KRISTEN WELKER. And Robert Costa, national political reporter for The Washington Post and moderator of Washington Week on PBS. Well, the president is busy this morning. He's on his way to Texas for what will be quite the event with Prime Minister Modi down there in Houston. But as he does all the time, KRISTEN, he stopped to speak with reporters, and he appears to have admitted that, yes, indeed, he brought up Joe Biden in his conversations with the president of Ukraine. Here he is.
We had a great conversation. The conversation I had was largely congratulatory, was largely corruption, all of the corruption taking place, was largely the fact that we don't want our people, like Vice President Biden and his son, creating to the corruption already in the Ukraine.
Nothing is done by accident, KRISTEN WELKER. Suddenly he is admitting the Biden portion of this conversation. That sounds like somebody who just was reminded what he said.
Right. May have revisited the transcript and the contents of the phone call. It's also moves the needle from what he said to me in the Oval Office on Friday when I asked him if he discussed Joe Biden as a part of this conversation, and he said it doesn't matter what I discussed. Is the president trying to push this into the headlines, this story, this controversial story, which is unsubstantiated? Right. Of course, the Biden campaign underscores the fact that the allegations against the former vice president have never been substantiated. There's never been any evidence of wrongdoing. The bottom line is, from the president's perspective, the only way to put this story to bed is to release the transcript. Yeah. I can tell you there's a debate right now in the White House whether or not to do that. What would the implications be for national security? What message would that send to other foreign leaders? And would it be gray? Well,
I can tell you this, Secretary Mnuchin, who will be on in a little bit, it's my understanding the argument right now that's winning the day is don't. It sets a bad precedent. Robert Costa, are we being gaslit here? Meaning that they have tried to create this storyline of somehow corruption that's somehow connected to Biden. There had been no takers, and now all of a sudden, because of the lengths with which the president has gone, that this is actually in some ways strategic.
They may have a political strategy at the White House, but the story remains the president's conversations with the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, this former comedian and actor. I was in the room with Zelensky earlier this month in Warsaw and talking to Ukrainian officials. They have felt this has been a bizarre experience for them for months. They had Rudy Giuliani coming over to talk about maybe having an investigation into Joe Biden, this phone call with President Trump, and then Vice President Pence went over in a meeting in Poland with Zelensky and said, you better investigate corruption. And the Ukrainians have been saying to themselves, does this mean we must investigate corruption in order to get that $250 million?
Carlos CURBELO, the president right now has admitted that he brought up Joe Biden with the president. At this point, he is asked, how is that not asking for foreign assistance? And if so, let's not get creative here, as Chris Murphy said, has he just committed an impeachable violation?
Well, Chuck, I want to point to your interview with Pat Toomey, because most Republicans tend to be elusive when asked specific questions. And you asked him, is this appropriate? And he said, absolutely not. It is not appropriate for the president, any president, to reach out to a foreign leader to ask for help for his election. Pat Toomey said it. Most Republicans still will not say it, and that's what we have to focus on here. Sure, there's the Biden angle and everything else, but at the end of the day, it's the president asking another foreign leader for support for a U.S. election. That is troubling. Now, politically, could this end up helping him? Maybe. This is going to fuel impeachment talks in the House. This is going to put pressure on Nancy Pelosi again to take that step. And we know people in the White House would like to see the president impeached because they think it would help him politically.
Donna, take a look at the pressure already this morning. I'm going to put up a few quotes and tweets. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the bigger national scandal isn't the president's law-breaking behavior, it is the Democratic Party's refusal to impeach him for it. Congressman Steve Cohen, also a progressive Democrat, we back off everything, we've been very weak. Senator Elizabeth Warren, by failing to act, Congress is complicit.
Well, I agree. I mean, I think that this is a president who, clearly you give him an inch, he takes 2 miles. And he's done that every time he moves the bar. And in this instance, what he said, he learned nothing was going to happen after the Mueller report. And so I'll make that phone call to Zelensky. And I think that unless Democrats really intend to hold his feet to the fire, then they should just stop screaming about it, because it makes them look weak and feckless. And this president takes advantage of every single opportunity.
And Chuck, I think the divisions, the confusion over impeachment was laid bare this week during the Corey Lewandowski hearings, when Democrats seemed ill-prepared to deal with some of his barbs. He came loaded for bear, certainly. This is adding fuel to the impeachment momentum. There's movement, there's no doubt about that. But I've been talking to leadership aides on Capitol Hill who say, look, we're still just not there yet. Leader Pelosi's not there yet. She wants the investigations to play out. And they also raise the fact that, look, we don't know specifically yet everything that happened in this.
Ask her again Thursday.
The frustration among House Democrats isn't just about this Ukrainian story. You look at Corey Lewandowski coming to Capitol Hill this week, defiance at every turn, blocking of documents, witnesses. This White House keeps saying to Democrats in Congress, we're not cooperating at any level, and that's why Democrats are simmering.
I want to get the two of you on Iran here for a second. You've had to make these tough decisions about agreeing to send troops. David Ignatius writes the following: for Trump, this is a self-inflicted wound. Now Trump must decide whether to fight a war he and the country don't want, or to accommodate an Iran whose truculence he helped create. Welcome to the Middle East, Mr. President. Carlos, do you think that essentially the president just miscalculated on the Iran deal?
Well, look, I think we have to be fair. This is a president a lot of people feared would be extremely impulsive, would get us into unnecessary wars. Here he's showing restraint. And those who criticize him have to choose. Are they going to criticize him for being too aggressive, or is this maybe now hypocritical when they're saying, well, he's sending mixed messages? Secondly, to Ignatius's point, Iran is a terrorist regime. They were going to carry out this expansionist campaign in the Middle East regardless of the president.
How do we know that? I've heard this argument. How do we know that?
They were doing it after President Obama signed the nuclear agreement with them. So to say that Iran is acting in this way in reaction to the president, I don't think that's really fair either. I think the president does risk speaking loudly and carrying a small stick, the opposite of what Teddy Roosevelt used to say. There is some risk there, but I think restraint is something most people celebrate when it comes to Donald Trump.
Donna.
Yeah, but this is really stemmed from the president's pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal and not having a plan B. There was never a plan for what happens the day after you pull out of that deal. And what we've seen is the devolution of all of the policy with Iran, precisely because the president never had an idea of where to go next.
Well, we're going to try to figure out where he's going next.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.